Welcome to How to Homeschool Radio, the show where we help new and veteran homeschoolers create a successful homeschool that works for their families. Whether you're thinking about homeschooling, just started homeschooling, or have been homeschooling for years, you've come to the right place. I'm your host, Judy Sardin, homeschooling coach, homeschooling mom of two, and author of Sardin's Practical Guide, How to Start Homeschooling. Are you ready? Let's get to it. Hey, this is Judy Sardin, and I wanted to talk to you today about having the patience to homeschool your kids. This has been a rough week for me, and I thought this would be the perfect time to record this episode because, today my kids drove me crazy, but a week ago, it was really, really bad. And I wanted to kind of talk to you. Whenever we talk about homeschooling, we talk about all the great things about homeschooling. And I think it's important to be real. And so this is going to be a really real episode. And so, my husband's been traveling a lot lately, and I've been with the kids all the time. I don't have the kind of the relief that I typically have. My relief pitcher gets home at night from work, and then I can usually crawl up in my room and decompress. But he's been traveling for days and days on end lately, and it's really gotten, I guess the kids, it had been one of those weeks, and one particular day, my daughter just, every single thing that we covered, it was as if it was the first time she'd seen it. And she's usually a diligent student, but this particular day, she wasn't going to be diligent for anything or anybody. And so she wasn't wanting to do her work. And when we would sit down to do the work, all the work, this would be, review stuff. It would all be like she was seeing it for the first time. And it irritated me to no end. And I ended up, losing my temper. I'm yelling at her. And it was a bad day. It was a really bad day. And okay, typically it's one kid is acting up and the other one is okay. But this particular day, it was both of them. So my daughter is not wanting to be diligent at her work, and she's not remembering anything that we've done before. And the same day, my son was just bouncing off the walls, and I tried to get him out so he can, get out of the house, run around and do something, but it was one of those times when it had been raining for a couple of days, and he was probably suffering from a bit of cabin fever. And he was talking back to me every time I turn around. He's 12, and so he's kind of at that stage where he knows everything, and he's talking back every time I would say something. He'd have something to say back to me, and he's being loud, and I'm very sensitive to sound, and we have all hardwoods in our house, so everything echoes almost. And so it was just one of those days. He was being loud, he was being just naughty, he was messing with his sister, she's whining, and she's not doing her work. It was as if and then my house was a total wreck, and it was just one of those days where I really wanted to go into the closet, close the door, and cry. And so I'm telling you all this to tell you that you are going to have those days. And how did I resolve it? I went in my room, and no, I didn't go in my room this day. Typically what I will do is I'll go in my room and close the door and tell the kids to watch Netflix or something. But this particular day, I just couldn't take it anymore. And because they were both being so naughty, I didn't want to go in my room and let them watch TV. I wanted them to feel some consequences for their behavior, so I sent them each to their room. Now they're each other's best playmate, especially when they're ganging up on mom. And so by sending them each to their own rooms, I felt where I knew they didn't want to go, I felt like that would at least help them to experience some consequences for their very unruly behavior that day. So they had to take their schoolwork into their rooms and work on their schoolwork in their rooms by themselves. And then that allowed me to then go in my room. I could go in the kitchen. I could basically navigate around the house in peace on my own, because sometimes I'll want to go in my room and close the door, but I didn't want to go in my room and close the door. I had stuff to do. I couldn't go in my room and close the door. But by putting them in their own rooms, doing their schoolwork, and then, my son has bins of Legos in his room. When he got done with his schoolwork, he could play with his Legos. My daughter has her dolls in her dollhouse in her room. Once she finished with her work, she could play with her dollhouse. But I didn't care. All I told them was that when they got out, I expected the work to be done. I was going to check it. And when they finished, they were free to do whatever it is they could find to do in their rooms, but they could not come out. And they had to sit in those rooms for a couple of hours. That gave me time to decompress. It gave me time to get done what I needed to get done. And it at least gave me what I needed at the time. And so that's one of the things that I want to share with you. Your kids are going to drive you crazy. You're going to have those days, and sometimes those days will roll into weeks. But I think that you have to remember that it will be very, very, very atypical if your entire school year is like that. And so I've been reading Moms, here we are. I'm recording this in late October. And so school's in. Everybody who's homeschooling has been homeschooling for at least since September. Some people have been doing it since August. The weather is getting cold, depending on where you live. I live in Georgia, so except for the rain, it hasn't really gotten too cold to go out. But I know some places have already gotten snow, and the cabin fever is beginning to set in. It's dark when you wake up. It's getting to be dark when you get home at night. And so it's just getting to be that time of year where people we start off so excited, so fun, and now people are we're in it now, and it's not fun anymore, and it's not exciting anymore. And I've seen so many people on the Facebook forums talk about maybe they should send their kids back to school. And so I'm just saying, don't think that just because you're having a bad day or a bad week or even a bad month, that equals send to school. Because I'm telling you, if my kids had gone to school in the state that they were in that particular day, in addition to having to sit with them and do homework when they got home, I would have had to get notes from the teachers. I would have had to deal with school discipline. I would have had to deal with all the stuff that would have happened to them that day at school because they'd both decided to be naughty. And that would have been so stressful. And then I would have had to get homework done in order for them to turn in the next day, or we would have had to get projects done. I would have had that additional stress of having to get all the stuff done for the school to turn in. Who knows? Could have been some fancy dress up day the next day. We still would have had to deal with all of that stuff in the state that they were in while dealing with the notes from the school. I would have had a full day at work, at my job. I would have still had the frustrations that I had that day trying to get work done. I would have had all that stuff at the end of the day when they are tired and when I was tired. As it happens, I was able to decompress. I was able to allow myself time to decompress. I was able to actually give them some time to decompress, because sometimes kids need to decompress as well. And so on days like that, when it's just one of those days, we have a minimal amount of work we have to get done. We have to get reading done. We have to get math done. And now Spanish. If they can get their minimal amount of work done, then they get to spend time in their room decompressing or kind of reflecting or doing whatever it is that they did during those 3 hours of quiet time. And it worked out really well for everybody. At the end of the day, they were able to come out. I cooked dinner. Everybody seems to have come down off of, I don't know what it was that everybody was buzzing with, but everybody seemed to be calmed down, and we were able to have the rest of our day in a relatively quiet and orderly way. And then the next day I woke up. I knew, we'd had a really bad day the day before, so I made sure everybody slept in. I didn't wake anybody up. I let everybody wake up naturally to make sure everyone had gotten enough sleep, to make sure I had gotten enough sleep. I'm typically an early riser. I let myself sleep until 8 o'clock that day. And just kind of started the day off new, We're going to just do a redo. We're going to keep moving. And that's the other wonderful thing about homeschooling. You know, if they've gone to school after having such a horrible day at school, you've got the teacher. Teacher's going to hold a grudge. I don't care who you are. I don't care how much you try not to. Teacher's going to hold a grudge. And teacher's going to be looking out for more unruly behavior. In fact, after having a really bad day, the teacher's going to be hypersensitive about being disorderly or being out of line. And consequences are going to be even harsher if they step out of line 1 second, 1 bit. And so by homeschooling, we were able to just really press the restart button and start over the next day. So I'm saying all this to tell you guys, just hang in there. You will have those days and you will have those months, but it gets better, and it's really rare to have a multiple months of this. If you have a child who doesn't want to do work, which I see that a lot on the Facebook forums, my child doesn't want to do work. My child refuses to do work. A couple of things. There are things that have to get done, and you can try to make it fun. You can try to make it exciting. You can try to cater it to the child's needs. But at the end of the day, certain things just have to get done. And, I'm going to recommend that you have a consequences system set up for that. I personally don't believe in a reward system, meaning, if you do this, then you'll get money. If you do this, you'll get money. My kids know that we don't do the electronics or television during the week. I'm talking cartoons, Teen Titans or something. We don't do those during the week. So we don't have that kind of system. They are allowed to do it on the weekends. However, if they haven't gotten work done, then they've got to spend time during the weekend on their time getting those things done before they can watch television. Or play their video games or whatever. And so that's kind of the extent of our system of rewards. But as far as, giving them inducements to do whatever, I don't really have any, because in life you do have to do stuff you don't want to do sometimes. So they have a minimum of things that they have to get done every day, and then they just get it done. So that's kind of what my day was like. And I have to admit that I have been having those days, not consecutive days, but off and on. I've been having those days, and a couple of things that I do in order to help myself when I am having those days. First thing, make sure you have a place to decompress and have the kids decompress. I think that's going to be the first thing. When you realize that you've reached your limit, you've got to have a place where you and the kids can go. The children, depending on their age, they need to be someplace, obviously, where that they'll be safe. And so it's going to be harder the younger the kids are. But, even if it takes turning on Netflix or turning something on and letting them sit in front of it, that they're going to stay mesmerized in front of the screen for a while. It's okay to let the television or the iPad be a babysitter for a while. It really is. Okay. So don't feel bad if you need to get away and you're at your limit. It is far better for your child to sit in front of that iPad or that television so that you can go and decompress. So that's really the first thing that I recommend. Always have your plan already set out, because believe me, you are going to need to execute this plan. So first off, that's have your escape route, have your escape plan. Okay, that's the first thing. And then the second thing, once you've decompressed, and don't even try to do it while you're still kind of on edge, while everybody's still on edge, but try to figure out what is the root cause. What is it? Is it me because I'm hormonal right now? Is it just that week where I need to maybe try to do less because I know that my hormones are raging this week? Try to figure out what it is. Is it because the children are being this way? Is it because your child truly doesn't understand and you've got to kind of readjust your expectations? I talk about this in my series, How to Homeschool series, how to adjust your expectations so that you're not getting stressed or you're not stressing yourself out. So, is it like in my situation with my child who couldn't remember anything, that, I was frustrated with it, but so was she. And that is what was leading to her being non-diligent that day. So, so I know that when I go into the next day, we need to step back and maybe we need to review in order to prevent what happened yesterday from happening. Now, my son, who's just bouncing off the walls, okay, he's bouncing off the walls. I see he's got a lot of energy right now. Well, then, we have a gym membership. Maybe I need to get up earlier and take him to the gym so he can run around. He can get on the treadmill. He can play basketball. He can kind of get that energy out because he's been sitting in the house for days because it's been raining. And I mean, for him, I found that truly physical exercise is really the best medication for him. He's got his baseball net he can set up in the garage or outside if it's not raining. We've got set up in the basement where they can play, they can hit their tennis balls against the wall. So often some physical activity truly is all they need when they're just getting antsy. Even my daughter, who didn't used to be, she used to be able to sit for a long time. I've found now she has to move around a lot. So we have to have a lot of motion breaks for her now. And so, so the second part of this is sit back and think about where was the beginning point that ended up with us getting off the rails later. Because usually if you back up, once you get out of the situation, you back up, you can kind of identify where the starting point to that truly was. And if it truly is you, like I said, just give yourself some grace over the next couple of days so you can get over whatever it is that might be driving you to be a little more on edge. If it's the children, there's often we're diagnosing we see the behavior, but there's often something that's driving it. And then, because you can't make everything fun. Everything is not going to be fun. And it might just be a time to start doing some field trips. Maybe you need to incorporate more field trips, more experiential learning. You might be trying to do too much school. I never recommend people do school at home, because you'll never be able to replicate school at home. So, you're homeschooling, so you can do something different, so you can cater it. But so that's the second thing. Definitely take that time back. And then the last thing I recommend is always remembering when you feel frustrated, it really is not as bad as having to do all these things. You still have to do schoolwork. For the people who say my kid won't do schoolwork, well, if you put them back in school, they're going to have to do schoolwork. There's not going to be any getting around it. So whatever you would have to do if your child was in school, you're going to still have to do it when they're at home with you to get them to get their work done. And so get that stuff done and implement whatever it is you would have implemented if your kid is in school. You're still going to have to do it regardless of whether they're at home with you homeschooling or whether they're going to brick and mortar school. But at least you're doing it when you're not exhausted at the end of the day. The kid is not exhausted at the end of the day. You're able to figure out how best to teach it based on your child's needs, and you're able to really structure the learning for your child. And just remember, always keep in mind that just because the textbook says you need to present it this way, not all kids get it. And sometimes you have to be more creative. Go to Khan Academy, Google it, or look at some YouTube videos to see how other people have presented the information. Look at teachers' manuals. There are lots of different ways to present the same material. So if your kid just isn't getting it, a lot of times that's the reason why they don't want to do it. And so, spend some time to figure out how best they learn and how best to present the information to them. So those are the three things that I recommend. If you're just having those days, those weeks, those months, it's frustrating. Raising kids is frustrating. Raising kids will drive you crazy. That's normal, guys. And so don't let that keep you from homeschooling or make you think you need to put your kid back in school because you're having some rough times. And always find another seasoned homeschooling mom to talk to. As I do homeschool coaching, reach out to me at sardenquestions@gmail.com. Set up a consultation if you think you need some homeschool coaching. That's what I'm here for. Often being able to bounce off your ideas or your concerns or even your week-to-week issues with someone else who's understanding and who's been there, done that, can really, really help you to center yourself and to turn what you might think is a failing homeschooling around to make it successful and make it everything that you thought it would be. So I hope this is helpful, and I'll talk to you next time.
Hey, one more thing before you go. As a valued member of How to Homeschool Radio, I want to help you and hear from you not only when you're listening to the show, but all day, every day. I have a new Facebook group called How to Homeschool, and it's a place where you can get together with other homeschooling families to get support, offer support, and interact real-time to homeschooling issues that are most important to you. If you want to be a part of this growing community, see the latest videos, and get live answers to your homeschooling questions, go to judysardin.com/homeschool podcast. Or you can just hop onto Facebook and search for How to Homeschool under groups. Drop me a note to let me know when you join. I can't wait to see you there.